We will kick the show off. All right. Welcome, everybody. Come on into the Zoom room and get settled in. Good to see some familiar names and faces as well from last week. For those that maybe weren't here last week, no worries at all. This is a standalone session. We'll link back a little bit to what we talked about during the first session, but this is going to be some great content for you all today as well. I did email out the workbook earlier. It actually was a large attachment, so it sent it as a Google link to where you could then download the Word doc. I did just put a Google Doc link in the chat box to that workbook as well, if you want to grab that. And I will also upload the Word document to the chat box if you prefer to type on a Word doc. Then as we get rolling too, please don't hesitate to shoot me a message and I can make sure you get a copy of the workbook because it's got some additional content that we won't be really digging into during our conversations today. But it's got also contact information for folks there in Louisiana that you can reach out to, you can connect with, as well as places to take notes, to guide your thinking and reflect on the content we are sharing with you today. And today, what are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about Homefront heroes. We're going to be extending our focus of the SMVF population, the service members, veterans, and their families, to focus really and talk about the families and the children. We're going to navigate the crossroads of military family life and address the dual challenges of substance misuse and suicide prevention. We've got several breakout room activities built in as well to give you a chance to really connect with each other and really build your community across the state as it relates to serving the SMVF population. And I am Dave Clausen, founder and CEO of DJC Solutions, Army veteran, deployed to Iraq in 2005, 2006. Been working in the field of prevention for, I don't like to do math, but many, many years. Also got my start as a campus police officer. And that's how I learned about this whole evidence-based prevention strategies, prevention science, and I've been team prevention ever since. With me today would be one of our co-trainers, Jason Anderson. Jason, hit us with a quick little intro, please.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Yeah, I am Jason. I come to you with some different background. I'm an Army veteran as well. I served active Army from 91 to 94. Then I spent about a quarter of a century doing probation and parole work. I really enjoyed that field. I had a lot of opportunities to work with and help a lot of folks and serve in my community, and did a lot of professional development along the way. I've done a great deal of training of staff around motivational interviewing and other things. I fairly recently, just a little over a year ago, flipped the switch from all of the comforts and confines of government employment to doing consulting training stuff full time. So this is my gig. I do this sort of work. I do motivational interviewing stuff and a handful of other things. I also do some pulpit support. I'm a lay pastor. I love being out in the outdoors. I'm coming to you from northern Minnesota, where it is presently 7 below zero with a 25 below wind chill. So it's a little brisk. And I love the sound of my own voice. I love telling stories. So that's me. Sarah, let's hear about you.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Checking in from the 757, Virginia Beach, Virginia, outside of the world's largest naval base. I am the Military Family Resiliency Specialist for the state of Kentucky and Certified Prevention Specialist. I am also a proud Navy brat, which you'll get to hear a little bit more about my story today since we're talking about military-connected families. And I will share my connections as a daughter of a retired Navy chief and as a Gold Star sibling. So thank you all so much for joining us today. This is going to be an amazing day to share about family members, the S in SMVF. Who are they and what they're all about? And so some of our key agenda topics for today are going to be, we serve too. So how are military families, those that did not necessarily wear the uniform, but how do those spouses, those children, those nieces, nephews, brothers, sisters, how are they serving our military and our nation just because of their family connection and their loved ones volunteering to choose? Then we're going to go and dive into some of the risk factors and the way that it impacts our military families. And then we are really going to focus on military kids strong and those strengths that military kids have and how resilient they are. We saw on our opening screen a picture of a dandelion, which is the actual flower of the military child, because if you may be seeing them around in your yard and very frustrated because they grow everywhere. They're really, really hard to kill, and they really blossom and can flourish in any environment that they are in. And so we are really going to be focusing on military kids strong, and then best practices. How can you in your role really support the military connected family and encourage that resilience and help those individuals bloom within those environments? And we are going to end our day with a reflection and application activity. And so how can you then take all of the knowledge and the wisdom that you've gained today and put it into practice into your daily work in the roles that you do serving your military families in your local communities? And that is our agenda for today. And so now we are going to just take a moment to build some community amongst each other. And if you wouldn't mind, if you could put in the chat box your name, your role within your organization, whether you're working for the Department of Veteran Affairs, I see VOA on board, Department of Public Health, and then maybe one thing that you're really looking forward to this summer, since summer is near us and Jason needs warming up since it's -7 degrees. So let's think about some fun things that we're going to do this summer. I know in May, I am excited. I'm going to visit the Dominican Republic for the first time and celebrating my wedding anniversary. And so I'm really excited to take this trip that I am planning here in the warm months. So please feel free to share that.
Oh, possibly a 56th birthday party. All right. So I'm looking forward to this summer having fun with my baby girl, who actually is 9 months old tomorrow. So we'll actually be able to go out and do fun stuff this summer. She was in the NICU last summer after she was born. Looking forward to being with the community children this summer. Longer daytime, right? Oh my gosh. My wife works 12s at the hospital. It's dark when she leaves home and it's dark when she gets home. Oh my gosh, that daylight makes a big difference. It does. Yeah, the VOA is here on board. Sheriff's office, good to have you. Oh, somebody's heading off to college. Hey, and a cruise. Fun. Yes. I don't know about y'all, but I always like to start things off just looking for the positive things that, bring us a little bit of joy, make us kind of smile a little bit as well. VOA Healthcare Navigator. All right. College kids come and fill in your house. Yes. Stock that fridge, right? Right. Oh, yeah. Jason's going to Fort Lewis. I think we're going to hear more about that later.
Dave, this is Muriel.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, what's her name? Your coworker, but it's who is up there in Minnesota. But anyway, it's 73 degrees in Louisiana.
Oh, There you go, Jason. You got some warmth coming your way. We're sending that warm energy. Look,
Yeah. All right. So it's supposed to be 77 by 12 o'clock.
oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All right. This is virtual, but yeah, Jason, let's go down to Louisiana and then, we'll just deliver this virtually from our hotel room. So it's nice and warm. Oh yeah, 100% humidity. That's all good.
Right. And that makes it even more uncomfortable.
Right. Oh, we could handle it. All right. Wonderful. Keep chatting in the chat box anytime today. We've got plenty of time for you to come off of mute and share your voices as well. But, crawfish builds. Yes, please. Count me in. What time do those start? I'm on my way. Awesome. All right. Well, yes. Again, I'll be hanging on that chat box because I'm turning it back over to Sarah.
So as we shared today, we get to take a little trip down memory lane for me. This is a picture of me at 2 years old and my dad and my mom. Just before we were relocated, we were in Charleston, South Carolina at this time. And my mother was actually an immigrant. My father was stationed in Scotland when they met, and my mother moved to Charleston, South Carolina while pregnant with me and experienced a huge culture shock. She had never been out of the country of Scotland and traveled so far away from her family. And so really was a stay-at-home mom and just, I would say, smothered me with love because she didn't leave the house much at all. She barely drove. She spoke with a foreign language. She didn't have that community connection that she was used to. But when I was 4 years old, so just after this picture was taken, my dad received orders for us to go and be stationed over in England. And so we were able to spend more time with my family there. And we spent about 3 years there and had a great time being able to visit with my grandparents and all of my aunts and uncles and all of my cousins while we were stationed overseas. Went to school wearing the uniform. I lived in Air Force housing, Royal Air Force housing, so not U.S. Air Force housing. We had the opportunity to travel Europe because of being so close. We were able to get free flights with the military and went and traveled Germany and Holland and France and ate weird food that I had never ate before. Had to drink fizzy water because the regular bottled water was not good. And so as a kid, I didn't like the fizzy water, but remember staying in a bed and breakfast where they gave us an egg that was, I guess it was in the hard shell, but it wasn't fully cooked. And so I just remember having this breakfast that was really unlike anything that I had ever grew up with or experienced before. And so just being able to take all of those memories and trips, even at the age of, 5 to 8 years old when we were stationed over there, and being able to hold on to those now, of those exposures of different cultures, different communities, different languages, different people. So when I was 8 years old, we get transferred to Virginia Beach, Virginia, which is where I grew up. So I was in the 3rd grade. I went from wearing uniforms every day to now I'm in public school, having to wear my own wardrobe and pick out things. At that time, the bob hairstyle was in, so I got a bob cut, but I came from a foreign country. I had a foreign accent and people looked at me in my bob haircut and didn't understand who I was or why I talked this way. And as a 3rd grader, it was really intimidating to be around other kids and speak uh, not like them and not look like them and not dress the way they dressed. And so it's really challenging at times for me. Luckily, I still remember my third grade teacher, Mrs. Whitwell, who was from England. And so she really pulled me in close and really made me feel comfortable in her classroom and really looked out for me and really helped to guide me through my years of elementary school. Um, we were fortunate to where my dad didn't have to experience a lot of deployments in his career time, but there was one deployment that I remember when I was in middle school that he was gone for about 8 months. And, middle school is a very pivotal time for our young folks where they're, all these different emotions and hormones and, as we're transitioning into older ages. And I just, sports was a big part of my life, and being a part of these youth development programs that the military offered. But being that my dad wasn't there, it really impacted me. My dad played softball with the Navy, so I played softball. I was third base, like he was third base. But he wasn't in the crowds. He wasn't able to throw the ball with me and help me practice and help me pitch. He missed my chorus recitals and, these very pivotal times in my life that I was looking for that family support. And, my mom is struggling, trying to manage home life and, preteens and attitudes and things of that nature that preteens have, and trying to get us to get on board with helping her out around the house more, because she was always a stay-at-home mom. And she went from, dad taking care of everything in a very traditional home to now she was the one that was running the household. And so it was, a lot of fights, a lot of arguing, a lot of discord in the home because of just being an upset to our normal structure and our normal life. However, I, because I'm in Virginia Beach, Virginia, I grew up, everyone in my neighborhood was military connected. Everyone on my softball team was military connected. We had a similar understanding where when, even though we were all military, we weren't all attached to the same unit or the same ship as with the Army. And so we would take turns, when one family member was deployed, the other family would help out more, and have that fellowship within the families of, well, I'll take the kids this weekend, or you can take the kids this weekend. And so it was really about that network of support within our neighborhood that really understood the challenges and the difficulties that life was, that we lived. And so, continued growing up in high school. My older brother chooses to join the Army. Why not? We came from a military family. It was a great experience. And so in high school, he joins the Army and stationed in Germany. And every weekend, he would call me and at my job, because I worked at the Naval Commissary. Bagging groceries was my first job. And he would call me every weekend to check in and see how I was doing. He would mail me home disposable cameras to get developed. And I just remember the excitement of going to the Kmart and picking up the developed film to see what pictures he had taken to share with me. And so when he joined the Army, it really brought us closer together, because he was 7 years older than me. So he was doing grown-up things when I was still growing up. But when he left for basic training, it really drew us really close together. And I really felt special and honored that I was getting these calls at work, and he was really taking time out to check in on me and make sure that I was okay. Um, However, he missed my high school graduation because he was stationed in Germany, and because he was not going to be there and my father was not going to be there, I chose not to go to my high school graduation. I really brushed it off as, this is not a big deal. It's just high school graduation. No one's going to be there anyways, and you're going to go off to college. So there's no need for you to celebrate this moment because it's not a big deal. It's just I had to rationalize to myself that me graduating from high school wasn't a big deal because those key people in my life were not there. And so, moving forward, my brother comes home from the Army and struggles to find employment. He went from, loving being a soldier to selling wedding dresses at David's Bridal. And he was so unhappy with his life and, just feeling like he was not fulfilling his purpose. My younger brother around that same time in high school joins the National Guard. And so my older brother joined the National Guard, and they both decided that that's what they wanted to continue to do. And that was their purpose and their mission. And both of my brothers were deployed to Iraq in different time periods. My younger brother first, and I was able to connect with him on some digital platform, but it was, constantly checking my phone and refreshing emails to see if I had received contact from him or, it was everything okay with him and what was going on with him. With when my older brother was deployed, it was different because he had a wife and he had kids. And so she was always the primary contact now. And we would hear news through her of things that were going on. But, them serving and being gone in a war zone greatly impacted my life and worried about them constantly and knowing if they were going to be okay and come home okay. And, when they did come home, we saw that combat had. We saw, an increase in alcohol. We saw an increase in anger and poor emotional management of, coming downstairs and now we see a cupboard door off the hinges and just understanding that, maybe the coffee machine didn't work the way it was supposed to that morning. And so as a result, the cabinet door came off the hinges and, we didn't speak about it. We didn't know. We couldn't relate. I couldn't relate to them as, serving in combat, but they were able to relate to each other in that way. And, it was hard to be able to see that somebody is struggling with something that you couldn't help them with. You couldn't have conversations and have that understanding. And so, as a family, we continued to support and continued to give them as much information as we had at that time to support them in their journey. And it wasn't until, learning about prevention and the work that we do that really helped me grow and helped me thrive and helped me become resilient and use my experiences to educate others. So I'm grateful for this work. I'm grateful for that I am able to serve now my community in a different capacity than what the people in my life who volunteered to serve. And so now I continue to volunteer to serve here in the work that we do. So I'm honored and grateful for you all to be here with us today. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing even just a glimmer, a hint of what your story is. And folks, that was just to really kind of set the foundation for a conversation that we're going to have today, and to process, Sarah's story now. And we're going to be hearing more throughout, more of those key points, those big impacts, those big insights. But I want to just give y'all an opportunity to connect, to talk. And so we're going to do a quick little breakout, 5 minutes, and I'm going to put the questions in the chat box. I want to just take a moment and share with each other, what's something that comes to mind when you think of military connected families? What are some of the positive qualities or strengths that you believe military connected families possess that can really help them navigate challenges? And what are some of those feelings, some of those concerns that they might encounter just dealing with stressors of military connected life? We're going to come back and have a couple more a couple more questions as well to continue to set the foundation, the context for what we're going to be covering today. So it's a real quick breakout. We're going to do 4 minutes with a 60-second countdown timer. We'll see you back here in a few minutes. All right, welcome back to the main Zoom room. And I want to continue the conversations that you all were having in your breakout rooms. And I'm curious, what are some gaps or some themes that are really starting to emerge for you as you think about military connected families? Feel free to come off of mute and share your voice. Just, what are some common themes you're seeing? Dr. Harrison?
No.
Yep, go right ahead.
Okay, so I was sort of waiting. I don't know if you know this, but Felicia Johnson from Office of Behavioral Health, she is a military wife, or she was. How many years was he in the military?
He retired after 30 plus years.
Yeah. So she was just sharing with me because they were married a year after he joined the military. And so for all of those years, so her family moved 7 times, but he was deployed other times. But as a family, they had 2 children that they moved 7 times.
Yes. Alicia, your experience, jump up here on stage with us. Oh my gosh, the wisdom, the lessons, the things you've learned, and so absolutely. And I know there's some other military connected in the room too. Share y'all's voices. Your stories are powerful and matter.
For me, being a military spouse, and having to relocate away from family and close friends, it was about forming that family with your military people, the people that you live next to on the post that, so our family, our military family became our family away from family. And to this day, we still maintain very close ties with our military family. And the experience in itself for me and our children, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I think it helped to mold and shape me into the person that I am today, because you tend to take so much for granted. And that's why I'm very passionate about service members, veterans, and their families, because the title itself, it encompasses every person that's affected by it. And it's not just the military personnel, but, the spouses, the children, the extended family members that you've left behind. So this training is right on time. I was in and out of it last week, but heard nothing but great things about it from my director, Dr. Leslie Freeman, who's not able to join with us today. But just looking forward to the training today, and hopefully we'll be able to have many more from you, Dave. You are coming you have represented the training very well. And I can't thank you enough. You and your staff, thank you all so much. Nothing but great praises for the previous trainings.
Thank you. Thank
But
you.
I want to add, Dave, that what Felicia didn't mention is that now she has a son who has a family, and he's in the area. How many years?
He's been in 10 years. He's been in 10 years now.
Yeah, even a whole nother layer to your perspective and insights and wisdom, which we're actually going to talk about in a couple minutes too. The parents' perspective. Yes.
Completely different. Looking
Yep.
forward to it.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other folks, did you identify or start to see any other kind of like themes or gaps as you're having those conversations in your breakout rooms?
This is Shelly speaking. One of the
Mhm.
things that our group talked about was the unknown, especially when, loved ones are deployed. I have a brother, he's stationed in Valdosta, but he's been in the Air Force for some time, and he was deployed many times to the Middle East. And, for me, it was always, just wanting to constantly hear from him and do check-ins and to know that he's fine and so on. So just the unknown, it can build a lot of anxiety at times. And, especially when they have kids and, family that they leave behind, you're always wondering.
Right. And Shelley, just think of the time when we didn't have the technology. And so it was months waiting for a letter.
I know, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I learned how to write letters and calling cards with minutes on them and having to stand in line to use the phone. Oh my gosh. Yes. That's a whole other story there. All right. Well, last question before we jump forward. I want you to just pause for a minute and think. Just think to yourself. There's a spot in your workbook. I want you to think about, what are you hoping to happen today? So at the end of today, you can say, this was a good use of my time. I want you to just pause for a minute. I want you to be able to say, this was a good use of my time. What are you hoping to have happen? Right. Write those down in your workbook. And if you are comfortable, willing to, drop those in the chat box as well, because that can also help serve as our compass as trainers and facilitators as well, and help kind of guide us to make sure we're bringing you what you're looking for today. All right. Wonderful. Wonderful. And again, don't be shy. Come off of mute. Share your voice. Use that chat box, because today, just like last week, really is just an ongoing conversation that we're all going to be having together, because prevention is better together. And there's a whole heck of a lot of wisdom in this Zoom room here today. All right. So just a quick snapshot of data pulled from both measuringcommunities.org and also the Louisiana Department of Veteran Affairs. Now, there are 288,000 veterans and their families in your state. And looking at the youth age 0 to 18, and then 19.35% of veteran homes with children. And I know a lot of y'all will probably resonate with this too, but I know the training team here, we get fired up, and we often find ourselves saying, well, what about the F and SMVF? It's almost like they're such an afterthought, and we're honored to be able to bring the families, the youth to the forefront and dedicate today's lesson just to them. And so as we continue this conversation, Jason, you want to tell me a little bit about the, mixture of emotions that you got going on as a parent?
Parents and family. What about the F? What the F, Dave? What the F? Okay. Real quickly, if you have a loved one, whether that's a child, a spouse, a son, a daughter, a nephew, if you have someone you would consider a loved one currently serving, raise your hand. Do the little raise hand thing at the bottom of your screen. Raise your hand. I'm just going to look at the participant list here. If you've got somebody serving, raise your hand. Look at these hands shooting up. Look at these hands shooting up. Thank you. Thank you. That's a lot of you. A lot of you. As a proud parent of a soldier, of an Army soldier, I can speak to this mixture of emotions that we might experience around having a loved one in service. How do we support you all? How do we support the family members who have, maybe they're not the children of, we're going to spend more time on because it's so, so important. Even the spouses that are really, really directly connected. How do we honor, how do we support those that are one step removed maybe from that circle and yet not removed at all from that relationship? Our youngest son, Jacob, entered Army basic training just days after graduating high school. Now that meant a lot of changes for us. First of all, we were becoming empty nesters in like a hardcore bright line empty nest. Not, oh, we moved the kid into college and we'll see him over Thanksgiving and we're going to visit this weekend. No, he gone, right? He gone. Now that's an interesting experience as parents, but knowing that your son is experiencing the rigors, the demands, the sleep deprivation, all of that. I'm an Army veteran myself. Now it's been a few decades, but I know what he's going through and I know that he's going to be okay. My lovely wife is not an Army veteran. She's not a veteran at all. She had to rely a little bit more on deferring to my experience. She also found a tremendous amount of support in that dreaded social media. And I was in it, we just talked about, wow, isn't it something, the technology today, how we can access each other and everything? Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, but I was in awe of what the military is doing around social media. That Fort Sill, Oklahoma has a Facebook page for every class going through basic training so that periodically photos are dumped in there and you might catch a photo of your precious little snowflake doing the low crawl under some barbed wire. And there's my kid. And my wife was able to connect with these other parents and spouses just to support one another and to talk about how their kiddo's doing and how they're adjusting. It's all of the stuff, right? Go ahead and kick it to the next slide, if you would. We went to his basic training graduation, and I remember so vividly standing on like the parade ground, waiting for the soldiers to be released. So this whole battery of soldiers comes marching across the field. They're 150 yards away. They're still way out there coming across completely in uniform in all ways, in step, in dress, in all of it. And from 150 yards out, I locked onto one soldier. My eyes fixated on one of them. And I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, that's my boy. That's my boy. I knew it. It was like watching one of those goofy penguin documentaries. Like, how does the penguin know their kids peep and squeak? How do they find each other? I found my soldier in the sea of soldiers. And after their little ceremony and they did their things and they had a couple of words, they dismissed the soldiers. They got to spend the afternoon with us. And he walked up to us and you can hear the emotion in my voice and you can see the tears in my eyes. I've never been so proud of my boy in my life as when I stood before him in his uniform. So this sense of pride we have, having these loved ones serve, I'm not ashamed of this at all. And by the way, I can cry at a beer commercial. It takes nothing to get this out of me, but this will always get this out of me. The sense of pride we have is tremendous. Go ahead and kick it to the next slide, if you would. Now, very shortly after his completion of his training, he was stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington, up in the Pacific Northwest. But within weeks of him getting there, he was deployed, or on a rotation technically, to South Korea. So these are some of the images of him serving. He's an artillery cannon crewman. He's a cannon cocker in South Korea. And there he is, and he's doing his thing, and we're getting these images of him. And throughout his time there and in his service there, I have to tell you, it's interesting as a parent. I can't say that I'm feeling this like doom or foreboding of, he's not in combat. He was in Korea for about 9.5, 10 months, and now he's back in Fort Lewis. But I'm not feeling this sense of doom or gloom, but there is always this ever-present sense of unease. This ever-present sense, this like, and you almost don't even know it after a while. Like a fish doesn't know that they're wet, but it's always there. It's always this little bit of an undercurrent of unease. And the closest thing I could describe it to would be maybe when your teenage son or daughter is out late on prom night, and you know it's a risky night. You know that that some bad things can happen on a night like this. You trust in your child. You believe you raised them right. You believe they're going to make safe decisions. But until they get back home, until you hear the garage door open or you see the lights coming in the driveway, you never really feel completely at peace. And that's the experience that I'm in right now. And I have been for a while. I've always been a little bit of a newsie. I enjoy staying abreast of the current topics in the world, but holy cow, do I read the newspapers every morning. Holy cow, do I pay attention to what's going on with Kim Jong-un and with Ukraine and the Middle East and all of the things. They've always been important. Those are important things. They're really important now. They're really, really important now. The last thing I'll say about this experience of being a father of a soldier, being a veteran myself, it always is, I sincerely receive it when people say, hey, thanks for your service. I appreciate that. That's a kind thing to say. It lands with me. It really does. And at the same time, I'm humbled by it because my service was nothing compared to a lot of other people's service. I served from 91 to 94 active. I was deployed to Kuwait. I was deployed to Macedonia. I was never in active combat. I never had rounds sent my way. And at that time in my life, I was 18 to 20 nothing. I was immortal. I was bulletproof. So when I reflect on my service, I don't think of it. The word sacrifice doesn't come readily to mind. The words opportunity, the words interesting. I mean, I missed family. I missed out on things, but I got my college paid for. I made friends that I hold dear to my heart to this day that I stay connected with. So I don't feel like sacrifice is the first word that comes to my mind. But when I think about my son serving, and he is not currently in harm's way, he's in Fort Lewis, Washington. But the word sacrifice is the first thing that I think of. How are we supportive of those loved ones that have service members still connected? There's still a fish that is underwater and they don't know that they may not even know that they're wet. What are we doing to be proactive about that? To be as present in that as we are when we see somebody that we know is a veteran, we thank them for their service. How do we thank a mom or a dad or an aunt or an uncle or a brother or a sister for their service, the sacrifice that they're making in knowing that their loved one is in or was in harm's way? It's heavy stuff. It's important stuff. It's really important stuff. Let's talk about risk factors. There's so many, right? So many different risk factors to family members that they're exposed to. Some of the special considerations. Think about those family members, those children especially, of dual serving parents. Both parents serve. Both parents are subject to being deployed or being activated or being called upon. Or the single parents. My sister-in-law, my lovely wife's younger sister, spent 4 years active Army and then about 15 years in that active Air National Guard. She was a single mom for a good number of years, and she got sent out for different schoolings. It wasn't deployments, but for 3 or 4 month schooling, she would have to go. And we, the family, would parent her child, our godson, our nephew. How do we support and think about the impact of those families? The geographically isolated, the isolation that can happen based on where we're sending people having all the different barriers to seeking help, whether it's the stigma or things just aren't there. So many factors that are compounded based upon where they're at, who's available, race issues, ethnicity issues, all sorts of different things. And then not to mention all of the things that come with deployment cycles. Deployments. We talked a little bit about this in our last training, those of you who participated in that. And I told that story about the canoe, about getting in and out of a canoe. A deployment cycle, sparks all of that with families about it's really different when they come home. It's really different. This quote, he thought everything would be the same. He thought everything in the canoe was the same as when he left the canoe. He's the one that did the navigating in the canoe. He was the one that did the this or the that. No, roles got changed. A lot of things changed. he changed. The service member changed, the family changed. There's so many dynamics that evolve during a deployment. How long they're going to be out? Is this a multiple deployment? Is it a combat zone? Is it not a combat? How mom or dad are doing, how the rest of the family's doing while they're away. Missing out on benchmark things of a child's development. When I transitioned out of active Army, I went directly into Minnesota National Guard, Army National Guard, and I served for 4 years while I was in college. And I chose to get out. I chose to not re-enlist at that point. And that was 98 when I completed my enlistment. I kept track of that unit because there's a lot of colleagues and friends and even some family that were in it. And I noticed that, wow, as I tracked my family's trajectory and that unit's history and whatnot, they were deployed to Iraq at a time where, had I stayed in, I would have missed the birth of my first child. I would have not seen him until he was about 7 months old. And I didn't experience that because I got out. But even just the thought of that and knowing that that's what those service members were experiencing, oh my goodness, deployments, huge. Think of the day-to-day things that the spouse isn't able to do or that loved one isn't able to do. Helping with homework, helping with pick up kids from school, the day-to-day, all of those things. With that, the increased risk for maltreatment, the increased risk for whether that's neglect, whether that's just not their needs being met because of the additional stresses, the lack of supports that are put upon the remaining family members. Family member comes back. That doesn't mean it's just hunky-dory, everything's better. There's a significant period of adjustment generally, right? I'm going to just rattle off a stat. One study reports that 45% of families that experienced between 1 and 4 deployments lasting 3 or more months longer had a 16.42% increase of experiencing. I'm losing my stats. I should just tell stories and not read statistics. That's the moral of the story. It sucks. That's what the stat has to say. It screws you up. It messes you up. Let's get on to the next one. Frequent moving. Even if you're not being, having people sent away. Sarah talked about this. Being uprooted and bounced around from not just one community to the next, but one nation, one continent to the next. Unbelievable. The average DOT statistic, I'm going to try this one better. On average, a family moves 6 to 9 times between K and 12, between kindergarten and graduation. A typical Army brat, typical Navy brat, typical Air Force, 6 to 9 moves. That's more than 3 times the average of a civilian. Think of the impact on relationships. Think of the impact that has on credit transfers, on sports, athletics. I mean, there's situations or examples where a kid might be a star athlete, but may not make the varsity squad because the coaches know that this kid's going to be moving with the family here in 5 months. We know they're going to be out, so I can't put them on the starting squad. I got to put somebody else. What is this doing to this kid? The kid's always the new kid. You're always the new kid. You're always making new friends. Now, there are some resiliencies that come of that, and we're going to talk about it. But right now, we're talking risk factors. These are significant risk factors. Dave, you've got a story. You've got a personal account.
Sarah drove this home. Felicia drove this home. But right now, I'm watching this happen with my niece and nephew who have moved from Virginia Beach, Virginia to Groton, Connecticut, to Virginia Beach, Virginia, then to Chesapeake, Virginia, and now to Indiana as well. And so seeing the challenges that they are experiencing. And my nephew, he's the oldest. He just turned 13. My niece is 9 years old. So all of these moves, being a new kid, having to make new friends, learning new lockers, new schools, everything new all over again really has been a huge challenge. And they're growing up. They're learning who they are as individuals as well. And I could ramble on because I get fired up because I love them to death, but I'll come back and tell you a little bit more about this most recent move and some of the challenges that they have faced as a family.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff. Higher rates of spousal unemployment. Nearly a quarter of spouses are unemployed. More than a quarter. That's significantly higher than the national average. 31 to 53 report being underemployed, because this is really interesting. 45% of military spouses have a bachelor's or an advanced degree. 45%. Only 33% of the general population has that. So they're very educated. They're very equipped, and they're largely very underemployed. They have fewer employment options. There's going to be the volatility of how long they're going to be there. There's significant impacts on unemployment. Childcare issues are problematic. Lengths of time being out of the workforce because of being gone and this and that. So there's these weird breaks on their resume of their job search or job history that looks weird to a new employer. All sorts of things that happen. Relocations, permanent changes. Permanent change of station, we haven't talked much about that, but a PCS. So having somebody not be their duty station changed long-term, but just temporarily for 90 days or 120 days. Well, how do you can't get a job. You can't hold, it's a significant impacts in so many areas of their life. Sadly, it can even contribute to food insecurity. Next slide, if you would, Dave. This is just embarrassing, if I'm honest. This is embarrassing that this is where we're at as a society, that our military servicemen and women and their families, almost half of them have reported some sort of food insecurity in the past month. That's ridiculous. 18% reporting low food security. Not really certain if the cupboard's going to be full. Not really certain. No, it's embarrassing that we as a society would allow this, but that's where we're at. These are some of this is 2022 data. This is fresh data. Increased rates of child maltreatment. On to the next one there, Dave. Thanks. It shouldn't come as a surprise that when a family is confronted with all of these stressors, when all of these dynamics of one of the parents having to be gone, of the stresses that comes with that, without having adequate daycare, with being hundreds, if not thousands of miles away from your other support networks, from other family, from friends, from all of those things and what comes with it, that we see an increased rate of child maltreatment. We see increased rates of domestic abuse. We see increased rates of child abuse, children experiencing and witnessing abuse of their parents at the hand of their other parent. The active duty perpetrator is more often the father, but not necessarily, like 57% of the time. So this isn't purely a male thing. The increased rates of overseas deployment that we've seen since 9/11 has really created an uptick in this. And it's a heavy thing, and it's a dark thing, and it's a thing that we don't want to talk about, but it is a real thing. The increased rates of suicide and substance abuse. 87% of military teens having lower moderate mental well-being. 87%. 36% report being hit, kicked, or slapped by peers. And we're like, well, that seems like it's significantly higher than non-military. Increased rates of suicidal ideation and suicide attempts. 1 out of 4. 1 out of 4. Increased rates of alcohol use. 1.5% higher for drugs and opioids compared to non. So we're concerned nationwide about some of these rates with non-military related kids, but those who are connected to the service see increased rates of all of this. These are troubling risk factors that we need to be aware of. We need to be responsive to. We got to do something about it. What do we do? How do we attend to these without simply admiring these statistics, without it simply just going, wow, look at how broken they are. Yeah, the increased rates are troubling. They're troubling for these family members. The increased rates of mental health stuff and substance abuse stuff with our veterans is troubling. I want to be really careful here and point out that these statistics do not define who they are, though. right? These are important risk factors. They do not define who they are, though. There are also tremendously resilient individuals, right? Yeah, having to be the new kid in school often, it sucks. That's got to be hard. But holy cow, some of these people learn how to make friends like nobody's business. And it serves them very well in life. It creates a resiliency. We'll lean into that more in a minute. But we got to honor the concern that exists as well. These are heavy things. Oftentimes, sadly, our schools and communities, they don't quite get it. They don't quite get it. Most of the communities, even those that are adjacent to military organization or military installations that might have a higher rate of military folks, still don't necessarily really get it. And Dave's got a story here. Dave's going to unpack something for us here.
Yeah, it's a little bit more about my niece and nephew, Anna and Dylan. So my brother-in-law retired in September from the Navy, rockin', but they were relocating from Chesapeake, Virginia, where both were in a Purple Star school, which you're going to hear a lot more about Purple Star schools later if you're not already familiar with them. Purple Star schools, they get it. They get military service. And when they were relocating, they looked for Purple Star schools in Indiana, wanted to see if the schools they were going to had resources, understood the challenges that they were going to be facing in this relocation. But there wasn't a Purple Star school at all. And trying to navigate getting both of them enrolled in school mid-semester, mid-year, and then they're starting right after Christmas break. And some of the challenges they ran into is the school they wanted to go to is actually in a different county, a different school system, but there's nobody there to help my sister navigate and figure out who do I even call to talk about how to go about doing this. There wasn't that help and support. So they ended up having to go to the school in their county. Well, because they were joining mid-year, the electives were filled up. And quick story about my niece, she is an artist. She's 9 years old. She is an artist. Drawing, painting, coloring, also musically inclined as well. And art class was full. They couldn't make room. They couldn't fit her in art class. So they put her in gym class, PE, where they're doing CrossFit style weightlifting. She's not an athlete. On the third day of school, during gym class, she had to do box jumps. And if you're not familiar with those, it's where you have this wooden box in front of you and you jump up on it and then you jump off. She's a new kid in school, doesn't know anybody, has to do this physical task, and she's not necessarily athletic. Her first box jump, she falls, busts her elbow, and has to be taken to the emergency room. Next day, shows up to school with her arm in a cast. Think about the stress that put her in. Fourth day of school, whole new school system, already been struggling with bullying from her past schools and the frequent locations. So just another stressor that she's having to deal with. Add that to also my sister having to navigate all those challenges there as well. It's very real. It's very real. Yeah, I'm going to hit pause because I get fired up and ready to go on this one too. So I want to take a moment to pause for reflection, and I want to just open it up real quick. Would love to hear from you. What's something that stood out to y'all? And feel free to come off with me. Would love to hear your voice. Jamie, the food insecurity. That when Sarah shared that with me, that never even crossed my mind. And I go, oh my gosh, that opened my eyes. Dr. Harrison, the challenges. Kids, I get fired up. It gets me just wanting to go on a nice rant and just, let's do something about it. And that's where we're going to kind of start to shift. I know Jason talked about balancing the concern with hope, those protective factors, the resilience, the strengths that military families have. And that's where we're going to kind of start to shift our conversation and talk about military kid strong. Military kid strong. Sarah, you are a military kid and you are strong. So hit us with some knowledge.
I am. definitely am grateful for all of the experiences that have made me, as I think, Felicia mentioned earlier, how grateful she was, and she wouldn't change a thing about her experiences as a military family. And oftentimes I think that, those words like strong and brave and resilient, um, and heroes are all words we use for our veterans and our service members. And these same traits are instilled in military families. They may not have had to, and Jason, I can't even tell you what the exercise was that you said, but basically crawling under the barbed wire, I think is what you mentioned it in basic. Us, the spouses don't do that, and the youth don't do that, or the brothers and sisters, but we've been through basic training. We've been through deployments and have come out on this other side stronger, braver, wiser, you know, uh, definitely pulled some amazing experiences from our life. And, in my introduction, I say I'm a proud Navy brat. I'm proud of my family service and really honored, like Jason, when someone says thank you for your service. If somebody says, I sometimes, wear my brother's old PT Army jacket, and because I love it, and it was his, and it makes me feel close to him. And I I'm people will say thank you for your service, and I said no, not it's not my service, it was my brother's, but I accept your thanks on his behalf. We're proud, and we recognize when you say to our loved ones, thank you for your service. We were there, we sacrificed too, and we appreciate when someone acknowledges that you thank, Jason's and Dave's of the world that went and volunteered to be away from their families. And so if you are recognizing the sacrifices that they made, you're then recognizing the sacrifices that we made as the family members that were at home. And, just like in this room, families are military families. It's a legacy. Many of us have, you know, either our spouses or ourselves, our children, our grandchildren, our parents. It is a legacy to be in the military, and we are more likely to serve in the military because we are honored by the work and the commitment um, of family service. And so we have this sense of pride, and we take it with us and honor it and recognize it when we receive it from our community. Another huge protective factor that we are instilled in us is our leadership and our responsibility. When I talked about in seventh grade and my dad being deployed, I never really had to do anything around the house because my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And so when dad was deployed, it was like, now's the time I have to start learning how to help my mom around the house. And it made me feel good that I could take on that, leadership. And even though my baby brother, he was only a few years younger than me, and of course never listened, because little brothers, they just don't listen. But, I would try to encourage him to pick up his room, and felt like I needed to be the big older sibling, and enjoyed taking on those responsibilities. And I think, now, even as the, only girl in the family, I take on those leadership responsibilities within my family now, and making sure that we're staying connected and reaching out. And hey, you text dad for Father's Day, right? Or it's dad's birthday today, you texted him, right? And so even in the classroom, if you have a military child, you're able to instill that leadership within them by giving them opportunities to be leaders, because they are honored to take on those roles. And of course, we have to be sensitive to, overdoing the responsibility and giving kids too much responsibility. But it is an honor to be able to know that, while dad was deployed, he didn't have to worry about cutting the grass and whether or not we were going to get a fine from the city because the grass was 3 inches long, because Sarah was at home taking care of it, and he was proud of me, and it made me feel proud to know that he could, rely on me to take care of the household. Another huge factor is our adaptability and our resilience. And when we were talking before this training started, we talked about the hurry up and wait of the military that so many people are familiar with. And military families has to be just as adaptable, just as resilient. I'm going from Charleston, South Carolina to a small town in the south of England, and learning now. I walk to school every day. My first, I went kindergarten, first, second grade in England, and how to adapt. And I had a lot of freedom in England and being able to walk everywhere and go to the store. And then taking those same things, okay, now you're throwing me in Virginia Beach, Virginia, which is a large military population. So how do I now adapt? How do I learn to tone down my, English accent so that I can fit in with the community? And how can I continue to use these experiences of when, okay, so dad's not here, being able to watch me hit this home run in softball, but how can I continue to push forward? How can I continue to train and become resilient because of those experiences that we've had? And can I take, the experiences of trusting my brother's safety in Iraq when they were deployed, and how can I, use all of the things that I've learned now to stand here and introvert and deliver a training to folks in another state. All of these things that I've learned to become adaptable and resilient because of these experiences, and valuing diversity and new experiences. I mentioned traveling to other countries. Even still to this day, all of my friends or people that I'm around are military connected in some way, shape, or form. Even my husband is a military child as well. And we, I have dual languages. I have a blended, multi-ethnic, multicultural family because of, we just learned that you're my family. You're military. You're my family. You're with me. You understand me. You're my family. Because, I've got souvenirs and things from Dubai and Hong Kong and Australia and, all of these little trinkets. Even though I didn't get to see those places, I have an appreciation for those cultures and those experiences. And now, even though I did not serve in the military, grew up in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I spent 8 years in Tampa, and I spent about 8 years in Louisville, Kentucky, and now I'm back home in Virginia. But I enjoy new experiences. I'm looking forward to the Dominican Republic just because of those constant changes and things that I experienced younger. I look forward to something new, something fresh. If we know that, if you have a highly mobile family that's like, I wonder what this next adventure is going to bring, moving from Virginia Beach, Virginia, or Chesapeake, Virginia to Indiana. I wonder what new adventures you're going to learn in this new art class, and what new friends are going to be made, or what new job opportunities, because now, you were working in a school system in Virginia Beach and now you're working in Indiana. What new programs does Indiana offer as a as a employer to benefit your family and your community, and just having that excitement around all of those new experiences. One thing, that I am very, very grateful for is our strong family connection. My mom's family was always lived overseas. They still to this day, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. I didn't have that close familiar connection, but I had the close knit connection of my brothers, my mom, my dad, and our family. And, those strong, close knit families are essential for thriving families. The families can be strengthened through that separation. Just like I talked about, when my brother first went to basic training when I was in high school, I was always the lame younger sister, but when he separated from me and was in Germany, that was the time that our relationships had an opportunity to really grow, and we were really able to share information and share stories and experiences because of that time that we were separated. Those extended family members, even if they're not close to you, they can still be a huge family of support. I was amazed the other day, even seeing a kit. If you know someone's not feeling well, you can just send them like a kit that'll come with a bowl of soup and, some other a snuggie blanket. The way that technology is nowadays, we can send off those care packages, not just to our soldiers that are deployed, but to our family members that are not close to us. Because, you have the support of a military community, but it's also those other community members that can be just as essential, whether that's our faith-based communities, our school communities. I do live in Virginia Beach, Virginia, but I think it's so much, oh yeah, the Navy, the ships, this, that sometimes it's too much. Every 3 minutes you may see a fighter jet flying over, or you see the ships, but so immersed in it's sometimes unseen. But having those community connections that really support and understand what our families are going through is so essential. We know that sometimes our active duty families or guard families, they don't always seek help within the military community for various reasons. But having your faith-based leader that understands what military families experience, that can just sit and listen to you, having that school teacher, that counselor that can understand what you're going through, can make a huge impact on a family member's and a whole family unit's ability to thrive. It's the neighbor, when you're walking to go check your mail, that says, "Hey, how are things? How's so-and-so deployed?" Or how are things going over in training? Is there something I can do for you? Can I bring you a pot of food? Can I connect with you somehow? Can we get a coffee? Having those understanding schools and communities that are there in the good times and the difficult times. And those are the people that you're going to turn to when you do need that support. If you are away from your family, your blood relatives and things, having that understanding schools and communities is what is really going to make the impact for these families. And so we will just take this time now to pause for a reflection. And Dave, do you want to
Yeah. So
hear this up?
giving y'all homework, giving you an assignment. So we're going to take just, 10 minutes here for a break because we've been chatting for a while. We're going to take a break and come back and start talking about some of the best practices. But over the break, I want you to just ponder what are some ways that schools and communities and or you can help strengthen the resilience of military connected youth. I want you to just ponder that. What are some things y'all could do to help strengthen the resilience of military connected youth? So we're going to take 10 minutes and we'll see you right back at 35 minutes after the hour. Did I do that math right, y'all? Because I don't do math. Yes. All right.
Yes.
10 minutes, y'all. Take a nice little self-care break, stretch, water, coffee, and we'll see you in 10. Yeah. So come on back. Come on back. And I want you to just hold on to those thoughts that you maybe came up with on ways that you can strengthen the resilience of military connected youth. Reflect on, what helped you build your own resilience as well. And I got to tell you about that song, Gloria Estefan. That's the artist. If y'all didn't recognize, which Sarah educated me on this song and actually this story as well. But Gloria is a Cuban American whose family fled to the US after the Cuban Revolution. And then after arriving in the US, her father joined the US Army and fought in the Vietnam War. He became ill with multiple sclerosis, which was likely caused from Agent Orange exposure. And that's what he suffered in Vietnam. And at the age of 11, she helped her mother care for him and care for her younger sister, Rebecca, while her mother was working to try to support the family. She's a military child who, despite her unique challenges, became one of the best-selling female singers of all time. Won like 7 Grammy Awards, received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. She's just gone on to do amazing, amazing things. So that's just one military child, despite her challenging upbringing, went on to thrive and do just amazing, amazing things. Plus, the song is kind of fun too, to bring you all back with a little bit of positive energy and get on your feet and get to laugh at my awesome Zoom dance moves. So now, though, we're moving into, let's really talk about what are some of the best practices for supporting military connected families. And it really starts with identification and education. Y'all, it is super important for folks like teachers, healthcare providers, community prevention specialists, faith-based community, your neighbors, to really get to know the military kids, the military families in your communities. Because once we know who they are, we can connect them with the right resources and the right supports that they need. It's really all about just giving a helping hand during those tough times, those tough moves, those tough transitions, and really understanding what military life is like for these families. That way, we're not just saying we're a supportive community, we're actually being a supporting community. And by educating everyone on the unique challenges that military families face and really coming to work together, we can create that welcoming, that inclusive community for military connected youth and their families. Because what it comes down to, it's really all about making sure they feel at home, that they feel connected, no matter where they are at. It's all about making them feel at home, no matter where they are at. And I'm curious, did you know that how families feel about the support they get from their community and how connected they feel really make a difference in how happy and well their youth are, their kids are? I'm going to say that again because how families feel about the support they get from their community and how connected they feel makes a difference in how happy and how well their youth, their kids are. Plus, for military families, feeling like their community gets what military life is all about can make them feel like they truly belong. And that feeling of truly belonging matters a lot. Schools play a huge role in this by really setting high expectations, which at first is like, wait, what? Okay. We're going to challenge them. And that's because setting those high expectations in school is going to help foster resilience. Resilience is going to help youth make friends and also helping them connect with adults. And schools can just be that safe space for them amid a challenging, turbulent time. And it's important for youth, especially those with parents that are deployed, to have somebody to talk to outside of their home. They might not want to worry or feel like they're going to burden their at-home parent or family members by sharing everything. So they need to have a caring, trusted adult outside of their home that they feel safe and can talk to as well. And, in this room, I know y'all likely know any military connected youth, military connected kids. Just reaching out and saying hi can mean the world to them. When you're checking the mail, saying hi, when they're out throwing the ball on the sidewalk or the front yard or the backyard. Because it's not always easy to fit in when it feels like everyone else has known each other forever. They've got their solid friend bond, their circle. And so a simple hello, asking them how they're doing, asking them about their day, engaging with them in a genuine manner can make all the difference in the world. And I know Sarah's going to unpack some of these for us in a little bit as well, but there are a lot of resources out there like the MIC3, the Exceptional Family Member Program, the School Liaison Program. And if your workplace may actually have an employee resource group that you can partner with to help create and connect military families to where they can feel supported, to where they can feel included. There's resources out there. It's a matter of simply learning about them and then getting connected. Youth sports, clubs, and activities. Getting involved in clubs and extracurricular activities is great for students, right? Activities are usually open to everyone. And oftentimes they go year round. Both students and parents have mentioned how joining in these activities can be, they can be a game changer for making new friends, for getting used to a new school vibe. And, we can make sure that it's easier for students to jump into extracurriculars. I talked about the electives that my niece wasn't able to get into. We can help break down those barriers and make it easier for the military connected youth to get into youth sports, to get into clubs, to get into those extracurricular activities, because not all schools are on the same page, making sure everybody does get to join. And sometimes the youth miss out on making the team because they didn't move or relocate in time to go through tryouts, because they might be moving soon, like Jason was talking about. And so they didn't get that varsity spot. They didn't get to play. They didn't get on the team. And in addition to youth sports and those extracurriculars there, my niece isn't an athlete. But it's super important to create opportunities, create chances for you, for the families, the youth to meet, to hang out with other military connected families and with community members as well, so they can get to know each other. They can start to build those bonds, making those social connections, being the hub, being the convener to bring people together can really help, especially for teens and military families who we're dealing with the frequent moves. We're having a family member deployed. That social connectedness. We can be the hub. We can be the convener to create that safe space for folks to connect. And students, I mean, youth, like they're looking for a place to just chill, to just hang out, where they can just be themselves. Hang out with others who get the military life, not feel like they're on duty, having to take care of all the responsibilities that they had to pick up when their family member is exited the canoe for a deployment or a training mission. A place where they can just relax and feel connected, feel that sense of belonging. It's about finding that balance and making sure they feel like they're part of the bigger school community, but they also feel included and supported and connected to other military families, to other military youth as well. And I'm glad you pointed out the pictures, Jason, because I think there's a story behind these pictures. If I remember correctly, Sarah, isn't there like a brownies story here going on that you shared? I'm putting you on the spot. I'm sorry. But what you got? Hit us with it.
Well, brownies wasn't quite my thing. I would say my soccer years were my most pivotal. As I mentioned, when I first moved back from England to the States, I had this bob haircut. I spoke with a funny language, but my folks enrolled me in YDP, the youth development programs through the Department of the Navy, where I joined a co-ed soccer team. And at first it was still really difficult because it was co-ed and I had a bob haircut and people didn't really know who I was or why I was coming to this new team. But for 6 years, I played with the YDP, the youth sports program. And, I really thrived. I loved being a defender and defending the goal, maybe just that leadership and responsibility again of just protecting the goal. But it really helped me shine, really helped me, develop those connections. I had the same coach for several years until their family moved away. But it was so important for us to, every fall, every, end of the summer, it was like, oh, we're going to get to start practicing. We're going to get to start playing. My dad was a referee, so he was involved and created this. Saturdays was the thing. We just went to do sports. And even my mom, who is a stay-at-home mom, now had an opportunity to meet with other wives and other spouses and family members while we're all watching and cheering on the youth playing. But she's able to build that social connection through the team as well and having those supports. And as disappointing as it was, transitioning out of that team, it really helped me to grow and be strong. And because I didn't do school sports, it was something that, was offered through the Navy. But, the Boys and Girls Club is a great community program, and they offer free memberships for active duty and for people who are deployed. And there's a lot of community programs and agencies that do offer either free memberships or discounted memberships for military families so that they can get engaged, because sometimes there are challenges with school sports. But there are certain protections that military families do have. But if they are not able to get into the schools, there are those community sports that helps you connect with your local communities and getting engaged, because, those friendships and bonds that we make on early years really helps us develop later on in life to become resilient human beings that are productive and members of our community. And so they're really essential to growth and development.
Yes. Yes. Thanks for letting me put you on the spot to share that story. You got me thinking too about being a defender or protector. When I played soccer, I was the goalie. When I played ice hockey, I was the goalie. Hmm. There might be. I've never thought about that. Got me pondering now. All right. Anyways, back to this, Dave. Yeah, but thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. Youth sports, clubs, activities, creating opportunities for that social connectedness. That is something that we all can do in this room. We can be that hub. We can be that convener. And when it comes to peer groups, transition teams, here's the scoop. Having good friends and being connected with others is important for youth to feel happy and healthy. And when youth have solid friendships, they tend to believe in themselves more. They get better grades. They feel less sad or anxious as well. And for military kids, joining groups where they can meet other kids who get what it's like being part of a military family, that can be a game changer. Programs like the Military Child Education Coalition's student-to-student program and Anchored for Life are perfect for this. Plus, social media isn't just for scrolling through memes. Like Jason was saying, it's actually a pretty handy tool for staying in touch with old pals after relocating and making new friends when you move to a new place. So creating opportunities for those peer groups to create opportunity for social connectedness, for that sense, to foster that sense of belonging as well is also important when it comes to helping, to supporting, to serving our military connected family and youth. And we've got resiliency in the art picture up there that was drawn by a 6th grader, Military Youth Art Contest winner from 2023, uniting us to build resiliency. When it comes to fostering resiliency, it's all about bouncing back from tough times. It's something that helps kids navigate our imperfect world with a bit of hope and with a whole lot of confidence. It's like if we expect great things from young people, they're going to strive to meet those expectations. They really need adults in their corner who believe in them no matter what. They need adults in their corner who encourage them to be kind, be giving, and think outside the box. It's about helping them see their own strengths and giving them chances to feel skilled, to feel connected to their family and community, and confident in who they are, even when things get tricky or challenging. And so for kids living on a military base or installation, there's some pretty cool perks like easy access to resources, a safe environment, right? You ever go through the gate just to get on base? Feel safe. There's lots of recreational sports too. Moving around from place to place might seem like a drag and comes with its own set of stressors. There's also a silver lining because it's a chance to start fresh. It's a chance to dive into new hobbies, to make different friends, a chance to discover different talents that they didn't know they had. For families that are stationed overseas, it's an incredible opportunity to soak in those new cultures, pick up new languages, and see the world. Sharing these adventures can be a big part of their journey. And I mean, in a nutshell, it's about making sure the youth know that they've got something valuable to offer the world. And as adults, helping them find that sense of purpose. And one of the programs, one of the best practices that we are really excited to highlight is the Purple Star Award program. So I'm glad earlier somebody mentioned that they weren't familiar with this. Let's talk about it. What is the Purple Star Award program, Sarah? Tell us all about it.
So the Purple Star Award program actually started in 2016 out of the Department of Ohio. And the founder, People of Piba, had conversations with service members, veterans, families, and teachers and just ask them, what is it that you need to feel more supported? What is it that schools can do to better support your families so that they can become, both academically, emotionally, and socially ready to get out into the world? And so the Department of Ohio developed the Purple Star Award Program, which is a state-sponsored recognition for an individual schools that really go above and beyond to serve military families. It's more than tying a yellow ribbon around a tree. It's actually doing the work, understanding, identifying, connecting resources, and providing that support in challenging times. It helps increase those protective factors and all of those best practices, that Dave went through so that we can really mitigate those challenges and, lessen the impact of deployments and lessen the impact of those frequent moves by having that understanding within the school system. Because, as parents or as uncles and aunts and grandparents, we want our children to thrive. It's something that really impacts us on a personal level if we see our children, having a difficult time. So if you support our child, if you support what they're going through, we really feel that, and we really feel supported as adults to know that you're loving our children just as much as we do, and you're doing everything above and beyond just as much as we do. And as you can see, this is a program that is supported by Louisiana's Department of Education. It's been supported by the Department of Defense and the Military Child Education Coalition, which is a national organization that advocates for military-connected youth. And it's also being implemented in 43 states across the country. And when we look at what the requirements are, looking into Louisiana, and every state has a little different bit of a program, which I'll go into the difference in Kentucky's in a second. But for the most part, they all have the same basic foundations. They are going to designate someone in the school who's going to serve as the military family liaison. Now, that can be anyone that the school chooses. It can be a teacher, it can be a counselor, it can be a principal, it can be a PE coach. Typically, we see that those liaisons are volunteers. Typically, they are already military connected, but they're the ones that are going to make sure that that supportive environment is throughout the school community. They're going to be the ones that, if a child is having a difficult time adjusting in school, they're going to be the ones that say, hey, so-and-so's got a loved one that's deployed right now. That's why they're, missing a lot of school or having a hard time turning in assignments or out sick all the time. So they're providing that understanding for school staff. They're also providing that one-on-one support to the young person that may be having a challenging time. They're also going to connect family members to supports. If the student is having a hard time, they're going to be the ones that say, hey, have you looked into the Boys and Girls Club program? I know you missed tryouts here, but what about getting them enrolled over here? So the liaison is the person that really bridges the gap between the military family and the school environment. They work to identify special considerations. We talked about electives being an issue. We talked about sports being an issue, graduation requirements. Those liaisons are going to be equipped to understand those challenges and identify those supports. Shelley, did you have your hand raised? Did you have a question?
Yes. I really like the idea of having this additional support at the school level. But I do have a question, and I'm asking from a personal experience based on my own family and so on, like brothers and nieces. Is there anything in the curriculum that addresses maybe discrimination or racism at the school level or community level? Because that's just something I know that my brother has experienced as he's moved around several times, and nieces as well. So I was just curious as to if there's something built into the program at the school level or at the community level. It's just a question.
No, a great question. And thank you so much, because it is definitely an important conversation to have. And I think, creating that overall supportive environment. And I think you put in, that appreciating the value and diversity of cultures
Right.
is part of the overarching program message. But the program is not your typical program that you would think that has a curriculum. It's more of changing that community presence and changing the energy within the whole school community. And because it is school based, it may look a little differently at different schools. So a school that's, right outside of a military installation may have more programs and more supports than a school that's further away, but maybe has a lot of National Guard or not a lot of veteran programs. And so it's not a direct goal of the program, but it is definitely, addressing differences and diversity and acceptance of different people's experiences and walks of life. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I do think that is a valuable component, just because I think the military in general, all branches are very diverse. My nieces are they're from Japan, right? And so, just appreciating or being open to, different cultures and recognizing that, I think that can only help.
Yes. And really allowing, I think, Dave talked about allowing them the opportunity to voice their experiences and creating that safe place within the classroom also to to share those moments and experiences as well. So yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Felicia, did you have your hand raised?
Yes, I just wanted to thank Shelley for bringing, that concern up with this group, because having been a military spouse, I echo her thought process as far as our children being able to adjust and feeling welcome throughout my husband's career as we, transfer to different did PCS moves throughout his career, because a lot of times as children in different school settings, they were faced sometimes with feeling accepted due to, their race. Be it, it could be something as simple as, say, my daughter, hair looking different from another student, and then coming home and having to have a discussion with her about the differences and just, making sure that she still felt confident. But that is, that's a real big concern, especially I think a little bit more nowadays. Our children are, of course, adults now, but more so nowadays than even back then. So I just wanted to echo Shelley's concern with that. And thank you, Sarah, for your response to that.
Yeah, and thank you both for sharing your personal experiences. Definitely highlights the need for considerations. Our military is made up of people from all over the world, including my own family, who is an immigrant family. And, you know, I don't think that it's oftentimes spoken about enough, especially being a military family and moving into communities that are maybe don't look like you, don't talk like you, don't do things like you do. And so the overarching goal of having a Purple Star school is to really have that acceptance for all students, all families, regardless of their experiences, and really just celebrating them for their experiences and allowing those safe places. Dr. Harrison, did you have
Yes. Yeah, you mentioned immigrant families, and all the bullets you had here in the back of my head. That's what I was thinking about, because our community is a largely immigrant community. And I think we serve, so we don't have a school that serves in that capacity, but this community serves in that capacity.
And especially knowing that a lot of service members enlist in the military, especially immigrants, because they are looking for new opportunities for their family. And for example, my daughter's father immigrated from Cuba when he was 10, joined the military when he was out of high school, but none of his family spoke English. So if you're looking at supporting the family, you have to have that understanding that just because the service member is of English speaking and understands things, we have to have materials that are translated to various different language and being a culturally appropriate to be able to connect. And, you know, because prevention work is really so important at the local level, because of our communities are going to be very different, and knowing that you have a community that is a lot of people from other places and other countries, we have to be considerate of that, even when creating a website with resources. You know, it does no good if families don't understand what they're reading, if we don't translate it into a language that they're understanding. Or, you know, if we're having special events, you know, we have to be inclusive of families that, you know, may not speak a language or may not eat a certain food or may not participate in a certain thing. You know, we definitely have to have those considerations when working with all families, not just our military families, but all families, having those considerations to be making sure that we are reaching people in a way that they need to be reached and need to be heard. And so you can find more. Louisiana actually launched their program in 2021 through legislation, and they awarded 22 schools within that first year of launching the program. And Bozier, and excuse me if I'm mispronouncing because I'm not from Louisiana, so feel free to connect.
Bozier.
They were one of the first school districts to award their schools. And, you know, I read through some comments, and it's really been accepted proudly within the community because military families, even as Dave mentioned his sister, if they're coming from Virginia schools and going to Louisiana schools, they're looking for the Purple Star schools because they know that Purple Star schools have been trained. There is someone in that school that understands what I've been through. There's someone in that school that can connect me with resources that can help my child get into the art classes and get them connected and have those peer support teams, whether that's the student to student program or the Anchored for Life program. And they're really looking for it as a positive program because it is talked about in lots of places. And some of our families are coming from the DODEA schools, the schools that are on the military installations that have that understanding. And now they're going to public schools, or now they're going to private schools. And so if I want my student to come to your school, I'm looking for those things before I even move, before I even buy a house. Sometimes the most important thing is, how are my children going to thrive in this community? Are you prepared to help support my young person in this community? And so the Louisiana Department of Education is continuing to push this out. They're hoping that, during this school year, which I'm not sure if it's been released, but they were looking for 9 more schools to apply for the Purple Star Award. And they're putting it out in newsletters and letting families know. They celebrate the school. So once the school completes these 6 requirements, they go online to the Louisiana Department of Education website and they submit an application. They are reviewing the application, and once they are awarded, they receive a award that then they make public, press releases to the community to say, this school made the commitment, we took the steps, we did the extra work, we're providing this support for families, and we're here and we've got your back and we understand what you're going through. And so the more it not only impacts that individual family, that individual young person, it's really about creating that community, because now the community knows about it. The veterans in the community who have children, they know about it. They're feeling like, this school is really going above and beyond to show that they are working to support me and my family's needs. And on a national level, the Military Child Education Coalition has done a lot of research over the last few years to really see if it's actually benefiting these military families and what the schools and what the parents are actually saying about it. And we can see that, the parents are the green bars and the staff are the gray bars, but parents and staff are really reporting that the child's social emotional development has increased because of this school's ability to connect with these students, to connect with these families. The students are feeling supported. They've got their peers that they can talk to. They've got those trusted adults within the building. The parents are seeing that the child is able to handle different situations and challenges as they come up, because they're feeling supported. They feel empowered. They're feeling thrive. They're thriving within their school because the school is supporting of them. And, on the flip side, because they're feeling that connection within the school, their grades are also impacted by the Purple Star Award program. And we can see that, this program is really helping to develop our young people. And as we talked about earlier, our young people that are from military families are more likely to serve. So these are our future service members. These are our future leaders of our country. And because we are instilling this resilience within them in a young age, we're preparing them for future service, whether it's to our country at large or whether it's to our local community. And we can continue to see how this has impacted us across the country as more and more states join. When Kentucky launched their program in 2021, we actually launched our program through our behavioral health division with the Kentucky's Department of Behavioral Health. And at that particular time, I worked at a local level in Louisville and surrounding rural counties. And I spoke with the Kentucky National Guard Teen Council, and I showed them some data on military youth and what the students were reporting, that military connected youth were experiencing higher rates of serious psychological distress and suicide attempts and thoughts and substance use. And I asked these teens, I said, where do you all get your strengths from? Where do you all find that support? And they said to me, when I'm in a class and I know that my teacher has served and I have a veteran teacher, I feel connected to that person. I know that they understand what my family is going through because they've served. When I first started going to this particular high school, which was in a rural county, I didn't think there was any military kids like me. But then I went to a Kentucky National Guard youth camp and I saw kids from my high school at this youth camp. So then when I went back to school, I'm now connected with them and I have those peer supports. So after I spoke with these youth in Kentucky, we searched and searched and searched for ways that we can provide that support to military connected youth. And that's when we learned about the Purple Star Award program and developed it through our Department of Behavioral Health instead of our Department of Education, because we understood prevention. We understood what, the risk factors, we understood the protective factors and focused on resiliency. And so we developed our Purple Star Award program and really on a substance use prevention lens, and really tried to find out how could we use this program to mitigate those risk factors that might lead some military connected youth to using substances. And we developed our Purple Star liaison training while partnering with the University of Kentucky, and look at pre and post data from our liaison training survey that indicates that our liaisons' knowledge of military culture and military youth experiences have increased. We are able to see that they are now more familiar with the local resources and they have dialogues with other staff because of this training. We also ask our liaisons every year, what are you seeing within your schools? How are you supporting those military connected students? And what does it look like in the school? How has it changed? Some liaisons report having to work with individual families on a mental health or a substance use issue. They're being able to connect them with those resources. They're hosting events in April that celebrate Month of the Military Child. So April is coming up. We'll have huge events and things going across Kentucky where everyone's wearing purple, which is the color of the military child, to really just celebrate them, acknowledge that they are present in our community. Just let them know that we are here for them. And so those are just one of our first schools, middle schools there, where we awarded the Purple Star Award and some youth whose parent was deployed. We, on the next slide, you see a picture of, that community celebration within the school. We talked about, when they receive the award and we're celebrating them, they're inviting in the local VFW. They're inviting in those local partner organizations to celebrate with them. It'll blow you away if you're standing in a room full of young people And more than half of the students stand up or raise their hand and say, I'm a military connected kid. I want to be seen. I want to be heard. I want to be understood. And then they look around and they realize that they're not alone, that they have a crowd full of youth that are experiencing similar things that they've experienced, and really just giving them that sense of hope that will resonate throughout their school career while they're in that school, and they'll look for it again in other schools. And it's just really increased that community connection and that community support. And it's just fun to be around that positive energy and positive vibe within the school that really resonates throughout the halls, throughout, beyond Veterans Appreciation Month, beyond April as Month of the Military Child. It's there all year long. In the next slide, we just, another quote from a liaison that's really just strengthened the school's community support, and we're in the process of launching an award for community partners that support the school. So, we understand that there's a lot of pressure on schools nowadays, if there are any folks that are out there working in the school system, but, the long list of things that they have to do is growing longer and longer. But by inviting those VFWs in that have programs that support, they have scholarships, they have funds that they raise, you're now giving purpose to these VFWs and American Legions that are not as, maybe some of them are not as connected to the community. So now you're giving them an opportunity to connect with that younger generation, and giving, if we have individuals that are working for the Department of Veteran Affairs, you're now giving purpose to the VFW and the veterans in the community to be able to go into schools and read and talk about stories and share positive things that they've experienced because of military service. So there's a lot of good trainings and things out there, which we'll talk about in our resources, and Dave's put them in the workbook about different places to support students, teachers or staff or coaches. But I am looking. So if I'm reading the question correctly, you're asking if a teacher is deployed, how do you support the staff? If that's what I'm...
Right. Yes. Like just, not necessarily a Purple Star, school, just, how, is there something available? Like, does the military, are they able to like go in and, explain things to teachers, how, this might be what the students are feeling, or, when a teacher, someone like a leader in the school is deployed?
And we actually have that situation in Kentucky right now. In one of our rural counties, we had a National Guard unit deployed, and there was a teacher that was deployed. There's not a quote unquote training for that, that you could, go online to see, but you could have people from the community, whether that's even the Department of Veteran Affairs or your local installation, that could come into the school to be able to talk about things that are happening. You could do things like, by having a peer support group within the school, you're able to have more conversations about what this looks like. Maybe the classroom has a map of where the teacher is. Maybe they write letters to the teachers, or send the teacher a care package, or be able to connect with teachers while they're gone. So there's not per se a training class specifically to help navigate schools while someone is deployed or, on a training, but there is a kind of the overall program, and having those communications does that. But that is a really good point, and think that that is definitely something that would be very, very beneficial to create and have accessible. And I love, Dave, that you put Psych Armor in the chat, because they are one of the best professional development training classes that are out there. And they're one of the very few that actually offer trainings for educators and on youth. A lot of the military culture trainings out there are focused on veterans or service members, and Psych Armor is a great source. Alicia, I tried to look for the 22 schools that earned the Purple Star Award status, and it says that you can look on it on School Finder, but I was not able to navigate it well. And I think part of that, I read news articles on it. I read the Mix 3 commissioner. So the Mix 3 is the Military Interstate Children's Compact Commission, which is agreement that all 50 states connected and said, we are going to support active duty youth who transition to another school because of military service. And so you have an executive director at your state, which would be able to connect you with those schools. They're the ones that are actually reviewing your applications. In Kentucky, it's been a lot of word of mouth and marketing. Similar to Louisiana, we had a slow rollout because we just came out of COVID. And so it took us a lot of marketing. But after 2 years being in, we've got just under 100 schools that have been awarded the Purple Star. And once one school within the community comes on board, we try to get the others. One principal may talk to another principal, or districts talk to districts, and then we create a healthy competition between counties or parishes that say, Christian County was the first all purple county, and all public and private schools have received the designation. Get on board. We have an amazing advisory board that includes the governor's office and the executive director of military affairs and departments of veteran affairs. We've got liaisons from Fort Knox and Fort Campbell, and they have really been amazing partners. We've got the schools on board, and we're able to tap into the governor and get him to create 2-minute, 1-minute little PSAs about what the Purple Star program is and how to support the Purple Star Award program and get connected. We send out newsletters. Our Department of Veteran Affairs sends out newsletters supporting the program. Our schools do. We've got local boots on the ground prevention specialists that are out marketing the program at coalition meetings. We've really kind of done it from the top and the bottom and really gotten everybody involved. And now we're looking at getting more community partners to support those schools and acknowledging those community partners that are tapping in. And so I think as more schools become involved in Louisiana, you will hear more about them. And so now, as I mentioned, we have just under 100. I think it's about 92 after we finish this application period. And so now we have this network of schools. We created, Facebook group for our liaisons. We've created newsletters. We're now connecting them with other programs and resources to support those military families. Kentucky has regional prevention centers. We have 14 across the state. And those local prevention providers can now provide consultation and technical assistance to the schools that are looking to address mental health or substance use challenges within their schools. They can provide training, connect them with evidence-based programs, connect them with things like medication lock boxes. We get gun locks from our local VA that can give gun locks to our Purple Star awarded schools. We have our dinner table project, which was a universal program that encourages families to eat together. But we kind of rebranded the program specifically for military families and made materials. It's just a simple cardboard box that has question starters and conversation starters that encourages families to put their cell phones in this cardboard box while having dinner and have a conversation about what does a hero look like, or give us an example of, something heroic that you did today, something brave that you did today. We also print the 988 number on our dinner table project boxes. And so now families have these resources in their homes in a way of connecting with them. We have an annual art contest. This year's contest is designing our next Purple Star Award t-shirt. That artwork that we saw in our presentations was opportunities for our military youth to express themselves and get their voices heard. And we share that with our communities, and with presentations. We listen to our youth and then adjust our programs as we need to make sure that we are really impacting students the way that we need to. We have our Yellow Ribbon Resiliency Program, which has not taken as well as our Purple Star Award program, mostly because of COVID, and the way that deployments are changing and Yellow Ribbon events are changing. However, we do provide resiliency trainings during the National Guard youth camps every summer, and we provide them education on both substance use and coping skills and other refusal skills and other things that they can take along with them throughout their life. And so it's really an opportunity now. Once you've been awarded, we're connected with these schools and we're providing them resources. They can look to each other within the Liaison Facebook group to say, hey, what have you done? Or I have a student that needs this, because they're all school professionals and they know more about things that you can do in the schools and things that you can't do. And so they're able to connect with each other and feel like they have a network of support as well. Because our goal in Kentucky is to have an all purple state where all of our schools have been awarded. All of our liaisons are connecting with each other. The community feels it. We've got banners out on all the schools that say we support our military families. And, like I said, it's more than just checking a box. Yes, I asked the question. Okay, so now you've asked the question, what are you going to do to support these military connected students? And we're giving you now the tools that evidence shows helps increase that resiliency for our military connected families. And so it's a really amazing way for any organization to get connected within your state's program. And, the MIC3 executive director and these other school liaison officers that you have in your states, and getting connected with them and really getting the resources into the family's hands before they need them, and hopes that they would never need those numbers and resources as well. And so I think now we get to do our fun part.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Other questions? Any questions before we jump into our sort of reflection and application? So, want to give you a chance now to kind of reflect on all that we've covered today. We shared several personal stories from us, the training team, and also from y'all in the room, talking about experiences, stressors, risk factors, protective factors, resiliency, strength, those best practices, as well as the program that Sarah shared, Purple Star. So I want to give you a chance to really reflect on today's session and start to connect with each other and capture some of those opportunities that you see, some of those innovative ideas that are really coming to mind, like, ooh, I wonder if we can fill in the blank. We're going to put you in the breakout rooms just for a little bit to really unpack this together and reflect on the F in SNVF. We'll come back and want y'all to share. What are some of those ideas? What are some of those opportunities so we can learn from each other as well and look at what can we do? What are our next steps as we move forward? I'm going to give you a 10-minute breakout to reflect, and I'll put some questions in the chat box to kind of prompt your conversation, kind of guide your conversation, but really just want to hear what ideas, what opportunities are starting to bubble up that y'all see before you today. So we'll see you back in a few. Yeah, but I want to hear from you. What are some of those ideas, those opportunities, those outside the box ideas, those things that you want to carry forward, you want to maybe try in your community, your parish? And I want to just check in with each room. So room 3. So Charmaine, Evelyn, Mike, Rochelle, what are some of the things y'all talked about?
Who wants to go first?
Those goes.
we talked a lot about disservice, how we feel that the federal government and I guess a lot of people have been doing a disservice to not only the military that served, but also their families, and that how the food insecurity, that was eye-opening. We talked about that. We talked about how a lot of times too that those in the military are not informed of everything that they can access, are not informed of the resources. My father-in-law was diagnosed with prostate cancer from exposure from chemicals during the Vietnam War, and it was one of my husband's fraternity brothers. His dad, who actually has written a couple of books about resources and things that he could access because of that, because of what he was exposed to during his service, and how it's like as we've gone on throughout the years that our military is less and less informed of what can be done to help them. And, I spoke a little bit too about the letter that my father-in-law received that that his parents received, that, your son may be experiencing this, and this when he comes home, and just how we still have a long ways to go to understand military and to help our military members and their families.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And Rochelle, I see you're muted.
Right, because I was going to say that sometimes on the civilian side, it seems that we have a misconception in reference to how we feel military servicemen and women are doing well. Like they're provided everything that needs to, I guess, to make you successful as a serviceman. And really, it is a misconception. you just think that. My grandfather was in the military, and I still hear it today. He passed away in 2018. He was 95, but everybody deemed him as this strong person who was financially sound. And he was in the military. So that's what even made it a more truthful idea, but not necessarily so, because even listening to it, I heard my grandfather make statements about his mental health. And, it was just strange because I didn't want to tell, as the granddaughter, I didn't want to tell these people that, he really suffered. Um, because, but I realized they really didn't know. They thought he had every need met because he was in the military.
My goodness, yes, that I feel that my dad is 74, Vietnam veteran, and I am now, as I learn more about my own PTSD, I'm able to see how much he still struggles with it, and he just accepted it as that's the norm. And yeah, that just I feel that. Mike,
Yeah, I wanted to briefly say that I'm a little bit disappointed because, we typically feel the impact of the federal government, the trickle down effect of them implementing a program or an initiative. And it would just, for one example, it would seem as though they would maybe enact a policy that would allow uh, the children of service men and women the ability to transfer to any school um, to help them and so blur the lines, if you will, and make it easier for them to get into any school within their area, just to help them transition. Not only that, but just the lack of food. So it makes me examine what I can do, but also more so embarrassed that the United States wants you to serve, but they forget about serving you when you get out. And it seems like they're still in basic training when it comes to helping others. So thanks.
yeah, I hear that. Yes, Ed, see your hand up.
Hey, thank you. I have to leave at 12 for another meeting, but group two, we talked about, Bridget was speaking about all the difficulties she has as far as, her clients with military homeless veterans. And I gave her some contact information for her to contact one of my colleagues who's the prevention coordinator in Baton Rouge. And then also on my end, if one of you three could call me or email me tomorrow, I would like one of y'all free to kind of discuss your effort to my contract providers. We're having a meeting on March the 15th. I would love for y'all to give a 5-minute little talk about what y'all can provide to the schools in the New Orleans area. Two of my providers are two school systems, and they deal with a lot of military families here in our area, especially Plaquemines Parish. And because they have a Navy base there, and a military school, then Orleans Parish, that's New Orleans, they have a federal city as well. So that would be great if one of y'all could just kind of hop on board virtually at this meeting. And then, I can also further talk to y'all about what I can do to maybe reach out to the Veterans Administration here in New Orleans. So it's always been one of my goals as far as working with the veterans or providing MHSD resources to the military establishment, especially the veterans here in New Orleans, because they have a great VA. And my brother-in-law, David, who just passed away in the last couple of weeks, that's my wife's brother, but he received beautiful treatment from the VA over the past 2 or 3 years. Just A1 services that they provided David. And I really appreciate what they did for my brother. And
my brother-in-law, and also my wife, my sister-in-law. So if y'all could reach out to me and see if one of y'all could provide, can be part of that meeting, that would be great.
Absolutely. I grabbed your email, and thanks for sharing, and thanks for coming. I just want to check in real quick from room 1 as well. What'd y'all talk about? Any good insights? Anything you want to report out on? What are some of those ideas you had?
So I was in group 1. I was the one that put on there that we spent most of our time just trying to find what the schools were, but which was a struggle within itself. Because none of us are able to figure out how to, I guess, what not a best practice, but what to be able to start with if we can't even find a school that's already doing it to see how how they went through the process and what they use. So if we can't even find that, it makes it very difficult for us to be able to find a starting point. And we spend a lot of time discussing how difficult that was.
Yes, indeed. I feel that one too. Absolutely. I want to keep this conversation going. Felicia. Yeah. Sorry.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was wondering if you all have a list of the participating schools in Louisiana
Both.
that's participating in the Purple Heart program. That our office would be interested in that list of participating schools and seeing how we can connect with them and provide some of the services that we offer.
Yes. So I think we're going to have to email the Louisiana Department of Ed because we couldn't find the list. I'll grab that email to see if we can get it from them though.
I was thinking the same thing. I thought you all had the list, but I can reach out to Louisiana Department of Education.
Alicia. Yeah.
I wanted to share with Felicia that I was pretty excited on one of the prior slides to see that they had the medicated lock boxes. I will mention that when we have our next prevention partnership meeting, because that's a resource I did not know existed elsewhere outside of our coalition, and maybe bring that together somehow, some way.
Beautiful.
That's great, Alicia. Thank you for thinking of that, and hopefully we'll help to bridge a gap and just be able to provide additional resources.
Yes, of course.
Yes. Y'all got a lot going on. Doing great work and coming together even more. Just today alone in this Zoom room, more connections, more ideas have been made, and more positive change is in y'all's future. We are 2 minutes over time, so I got to let y'all go. But in the chat is a link for the evaluation, which is anonymous. We greatly appreciate your feedback. And we've got next week's session talking about student veterans on campus. We're really going to dig in and keep this conversation going to talk about another different layer, some other challenges, some other opportunities for veterans in your communities. And when you fill out that evaluation form at the end of it, it's got a link to then go get your certificate, which will be emailed to you as a PDF. Y'all are doing amazing work. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy days to come have this conversation that is oh so near and dear to our hearts. Thank you all very much. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody.